conscious rebirth. I think we come here and we forget who we are, and we get so lost in this realm of flesh, right? And then for one reason or another, we go home, we remember, and then we bring that remembrance down, and then we get rebirthed into flesh. And that's a conscious, that's so powerful, because that's so, with our human self, we choose to be here, but not just as puppets for these human conditions, but to remember that divine creations that we are, and allow that to be expressed.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's quite evident that there's a massive shift in the ether, in the ultimate expression of what we refer to as the primordial mother, and this incredible being that I'm going to have a conversation with today is an amplified example of that very state. I want to welcome to the podcast Camilla Borgstrom, who is a healer and a wisdom teacher. And I mean, the resume keeps going on, but why don't you just sample the energy and leave it up to you? I'm so incredibly grateful to have you on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you, San. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And here we are meeting across the globe in this interweb. What an amazing lens of reality that you can use the internet to interact with people that are in completely different places. Now, I would say that between you and I, these are things that we do on a daily basis that some people would call superhuman, but they're quite supernatural when you start to understand the actual resonance that we're speaking of. How about you share with the audience a little bit about yourself leading up to this point? I don't know, an abbreviated version, however you feel comfortable.
Sure, yeah. So, so I can start with what I'm here to share, what I feel is my, to use big words, my mission is to share parts of my journey, or the result of my journey, to remember who we are, to truly come into the right mind and clearing the programs of everything, all the illusions that we are not, and to return to that still point within, to really remember returning home to what we are, and to be a expression of that, whatever divine beings, that spark of light that we are.
Wow.
And I think that's when we really start to living, at least that's like what it was like for me.
And when was the first time you realized you had this accessibility to this knowing?
Yeah, I was always, if you call it awake, I was always aware. I always felt connected as a child. It was a natural state for me to really feel this presence of something greater, the presence of the divine, being in communication with the beings or seeing things. And it wasn't, so I was open and I was there. And then I kind of lost it. I lost myself. I went through very severe anxiety. And that was the really, so for me, it wasn't really external things. It was really about me losing that sense of connection. And that took away everything from me. And I had to go through, to make a long story short, really disconnect from everything that I thought I could rely on. And so my body collapsed, or my nervous system collapsed. And so it was even more than anxiety. It was these deep, when I tried to explain it to people, it was this deep fear, deep terror. And this was happening due to me coming off medications that I've been on for anxiety. So now I make it's like 10 years into this short version. And I come to the understanding, I come across a doctor several years later that explained that for some people with that kind of medicine that I was on, that happens for some people, that the nervous system collapses. And so I was in that state, you know, when you walk down the stairs and you accidentally just slip, you miss a step, you know that feeling, you know, the heart racing. And that was the state I was in 24/7 for almost 2 years. And I came across meditation at a very early age, and shamanism. I had, I would say, I was about to say the luck, but of course it was not just luck. At the early ages, at 13, so I had this practice. I didn't practice it regularly at that time, and but I really had to sit and just be with everything as it was, and just give everything up. That to have a body that was functioning, to be able to imagine a future, be able to really go about your day, and to really just be in that very, very now moment. I think deep pain, deep fear, deep anxiety helps us to get back to whatever truly exists, and it is this now moment. I couldn't think 1 hour ahead, or even sometimes 5 minutes. You know, when you say take one day at a time, for me it was one breath at a time. And this really, so if I cannot rely on anything, what is there? What is left? And it was just this consciousness, this to find peace in the now, even though my heart was racing. Or so did that answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very poetic, and the simplicity creates this really delectable, deep, sensitive understanding of what it truly means to be whole. And so through what you would consider a trial, a fire that you walk through, and the inverted effects. When we talk about reality, as a Taoist, we talk about yin and yang. Yin is the absorption of all colors, yang is the emission of all colors. So when you hit the needle and you go to one extreme or another, you will present the deficiency and, as you put it, the collapse of the alternative, the polarizing effect. When you go in and you're basically contending with the mental emotional state, which has high levels of yin, the further and further you dive into the rabbit hole, you find that the effects become isolating and very oppressive. And all of a sudden, you don't know what's up. And by hitting the needle to the yin side, that absorption will present itself in mental emotional states. Most commonly, with the evidence of it, is high levels of depression and anxiety. And then your physical body is not capable of holding anything that remotely seems like you're entering the center point back, the returning to an equalized homeostasis. And so when you, from my opinion, from what I know to be true over 30 years doing this, you entered the center point and you were liberated. You liberated that energy. You were like, I got nothing left. Screw this. I'm done. And that center point is so potent. It made you realize and regulate and literally liberate and return the energy to you, and you were realized. It was like, holy crap. Who knew that this is all I did? The charge that we're getting right now is that very effect that we know that this is true. And that's the most powerful part, is this physicality is a tuning fork to recognize the potency of this now moment. Furthermore, the intricacy of the energy potential that is generated from your attention and intention, when not burdened with the past or the future, reveals the true nature of who you are, and it shows itself as whole, as a
Yeah.
healing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a beautiful, really beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what you say, that the middle, that's like the
Well, that's
the
the present moment. That's the present
sorry.
moment. That's the
Yeah,
present
that's the present
moment.
moment, and that's
You are
there's
literally accessing the secret source right there.
yeah, yeah, really.
Yeah.
It's this glitch in the matrix where when you enter it, it's where the light is able to come in, and you are able to wake up. Yeah.
And you show it shows you who you really are, which is
Mm.
a Taoist lens of reality. Everything is a bellows.
Mm.
Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And when you realize that you are the center point, the unification of all things, you can access anything at will, because your attention intention is now the present moment. That means you're no identity. You're not Camilla. You are no place, no person, no thing. It's just now. And
Mm.
I've never witnessed a healing outside of that. When you move the needle and you identify with other constructs, this diminishes the accessibility and the charge to basically return and liberate that energy that would be for all intensive purposes in relation to your journey as you through your own confession. That extreme of yin is a very potent sense of intuitive knowing. But with that, if you're not aware that you are extremely inverted, it will start to diminish and dissolve what you perceive as material, which is the yang, which is the flesh, right?
Mm.
Even though it's so powerful, the step further, the unification is what we call the primordial mother, which is the void to all things. And so yin and yang is a byproduct that creates what we perceive as reality. And we use these tools through this oscillating effect to transmute it with our attention intention. And the primordial mother is the creation, the womb of all things. And so the incredible superpower for any woman, any expression of feminine energy, is the ability to access that. The potential problematic effects of that is if you're on that path and not being able to unify, you go to extreme. And then from that extreme, the side effects present themselves, mental, emotional state. And then furthermore, that corrodes and, as you put it, collapses all material, which is yang. And so the balance is you can put a splash of yin, a splash of yang, and get this incredible symbiosis. And then ultimately, if you want to see evidence of miracles and you want the now moment, that is the merging of the two. And that is undeniable. And you will see that through everything that you do, everything, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your breath will return you to that knowing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think I used to look at it as the conscious rebirth. I think we come here and we forget who we are, and we get so lost in this realm of flesh, right? And then for one reason or another, we go home, we remember, and then we bring that remembrance down, and then we get rebirthed into flesh. And that's a conscious, that's so powerful, because that's so, with our human self, we choose to be here, but not just as puppets for these human conditions, but to remember that divine creations that we are, and allow that to be expressed through. So allow that yin to be expressed through the yang.
Oh my
And that's
goodness.
when it
You had
become
me at
one.
hello. You had me at
Sorry.
hello. You had
Yeah.
me at hello for all those
Yeah.
Jerry Maguire guys. Well, and furthermore, from your incredible description, I would ask you the question: do you remember being a Taoist in a past life? Because this is what we call bringing immortality and crystallizing it into material. And so the relationship, the relationship that you have with that symbiosis, which is the expression of the primordial mother that creates this state of material, will present itself. So we cycle everything. You can return to your knowing in the breath. Between the breath in and the breath out is the center point, what we call the Wu Ji. When you hold that breath, you accumulate and absorb the riches, which is the primordial mother, and it starts to saturate and seep into the human flesh at a subatomic level, bringing back that union, that communion, that wholeness that is the true nature of who you are. And all of a sudden, the limitations of mortality are no longer, and you show it shows itself to you. And so the cycle of everything within this realm from a Taoist is accessible within the breath in and the breath out, but nine counts, 9 breaths, 9 fractions of a second. You call on that, and that is the completion of all things, and you instantly enter into rebirth, which is what I identify with when you speak on that. So there's a completion and rebirth that's happening all the time. And now your ability to access that potency, which is the mastery of what we call the alchemy, that makes it possible to hold that resonance at will through your own self-realization. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think it's important what you say, at will, to hold it at will, because that's when we become the master. We choose it and use our free will to, in that way. Wuji, do you translate it as?
Wuji, in definition, means the primordial mother, the void.
The void.
The creation. So what happens is the spark of yin and yang creates this diamond of perfection. It's the phosphorus seed that you will refer to as the merging of the mother and creating what we call yang. In that seed, in that womb, then bears this incredible superhuman creation, the human flesh. And through that cycle of 9 months, you are born into this reality once again, recreated, and will complete and return, which is the oscillating effects of the bellows that we speak of. It is never ending. It is abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. And now it's your mastery, your self-realization to return to that and use these masteries that have been around for hundreds of thousands of years to remember who you are. And from holding that, and it really comes down to, we're creating this light to wave to matter to particle, realize with your attention, intention, cutting from the cloth of perfection, which is this incredible miracle, we reveal the currency of this realm. Dualistic currency is required to enter what we consider this state, this realm, this place, and what we refer to that currency as energy potential. Now you can create from that energy potential, vibratory, frequential, and then ultimately a resonance that you hold through your mastery that returns everything back to whole, which is where you experience this incredible effect through your path of your very day. You'll walk into a room and people will be magnetized to you or repelled from you because of your own resonance, because they have to now look back at that mirror and accept who they really are, and then return that wholeness to their own energy field. And to do that requires pretty much realizing that you are no place, no person, no thing. So on its face value within this currency is the yang. So what is the yang? The yang is the byproduct of the mental emotional state, then expresses through the flesh. So the yin and yang is always taking place. So mental emotional is evidence of yin. that starts to present itself as you harbor what someone may consider a trigger, a trauma, some event that you have identified with as your humanness through your timeline. And then it seeps out through the body. And then, of course, when someone comes across and has to look in the mirror of your resonance, it is revealed. And then they can either go, oh, I'm coming home, or you're the reason why I feel this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I really resonate with that void space you're talking about, the
mother, the
cosmic
primordial
mother. Yeah, the cosmic womb, I used to call it. And I've seen it on my journey and with clients because I work very much with subconscious programs and beliefs, transmuting this human experiences, the traumatic human experiences. And so we come to a place where we need to just be in that void, to enter the void. And I see, so I don't know if that's your experience as well, that people resist it so badly, so deeply. They really fear this void space.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you
Well,
have
it's
experienced
more
as
the
well?
identity or the limitation of the humanist we call the human condition, the
Yeah.
lens of limitation or mortality, the finite mind, which is bankrupt.
Mm.
You keep going over the same thing, expecting a different result. Yet, if you cross over the line into the intuitive state, it's there. It's always there. It's never left you. But you attempt to craft these things with the lens of I am an individual. You can't fool me.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake that most people make initially on their path, because they keep returning to that very finite, bankrupt intellect, ego, personality, and it will never bear fruit. It will never blossom into a knowing, because you're constantly thinking. And thinking, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you are feeling. And that is the true essence of this void. And in returning to it is problematic only for a moment, as you start to reveal the truth to the seeker. For example, yourself as a mastered healer and wisdom teacher, through that resonance, people will see that very clearly. And you give them the self-mastery through these techniques to hold that resonance. Within Taoism, we call it the center point, the Vesika. And this is what we call absorbing the riches. As you hold your breath, you will accumulate and saturate the flesh with this unified void, the oneness, which some people will call the singular as a physicist, the 0 point, whatever you want to call it. You will exhibit that, and it will start to be so evident that the vibratory effects of that will start to seep into the flesh, and it will show through frequency and then ultimately resonance. And everyone has the ability to access it, but when you get there and you start like literally charging yourself up with this unification, if you're too extreme at one side of the needle or the other, it will start to promote the deficiencies that are very clear within your flesh, that you as a human in the human condition, on their journey through the labyrinth of the mind, to find and reveal at the other end that you are whole. And that journey will require what we call the selfishness to the selflessness that enters through the sacrifice. And then people go, oh, the void and sacrifice, two things. No, I'm not interested in that. I don't know. Whoa. Oh, no. I feel like I'm losing something, like my life or something of that nature. And this then presents to the seeker, oh my goodness, these are all the things that are holding me back. And I love the way that you speak on your teaching and you work with the conscious and unconscious process, because these are fundamentals that people need to really embrace to get a knowing of who they are, and realize that their free will is only measured by their conscious state. And if your conscious state is only a small percentage of the whole picture, you're never ever going to return to whole, as you stay there in the finite mind, in the intellect. And that is it's bankrupt, it's depraved, it's depressed, it's absolutely inverted. And so people stay there and they're like, I have free will. Okay, that's great. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. Until you merge the two, which is merging yin and yang, returning to the center point, the vesica. Oh, what's right here? It just so happens that this is a portal and gateway to your own knowing. And furthermore, when you activate it, these become one. And this is where the mastery of your teaching people the subconscious access or the conscious access, merging the two together, then you reveal yourself as whole. And all these other things will start to just fold into themselves, just like the symbiosis of yin and yang. They just merge in and then open up, and merge in and open up. Completion to rebirth. Completion to rebirth. This is happening instantly. And there is never a moment that you cannot access this incredible, beautiful relationship that returns you to whole. And then, of course, now we see the magic, we see the mystery, we see things that are super paranormal, beyond the imagination of the human mind. You reveal this supernatural, which is supernormal abilities, clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, physical healing. These are all parts of who you are. But you must return to that without the trappings of your personality. And once you get there, you can start using the personality at will and then interchanging this stuff. And ultimately, through your cultivational practice, you will hold that resonance and you can still enter into your personality. But the resonance it never leaves you. Once you access and continually ascend, it will be a constant. And some of the side effects will be selflessness and servitude. You will find it. You'll be like, whoa, I don't know. I can't fight it. I don't have any thought. I am just giving. This is the true nature of who I am. And, it returns me to one of my teachers, the Jade Emperor. And I use an incantation that is very powerful. It goes like this: a power abundant in its giving you will receive, unifying the body with the spirit with the energy, bringing heaven to earth, transitioning all is one, one is all, revealing perfection manifest. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering. That is your gift. That is your offering, which returns us to the bellows, returns us to the symbiosis of yin and yang, and then the completion and birth that we are constantly have the ability to access to return to the true knowing of who we are. I think that helps.
Yeah, that's beautiful and that's strong. I really like the part that's your gift, that's your offering. I really think when it comes, when we discover, when we remember the connection, it comes naturally. And when it's our experience, when it's our true internal state, not just something we understand, but we become it, then it's naturally ours to give away. And that, as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and so on. So we are always both the student and the teacher, teaching what we become, what we know with a capital K. Sorry, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm forever reminding people the student is the teacher is the student. The second you lose sight of that, consciousness ends. This is the power of the now moment. I'm getting high as a kite on your transmitted resonance, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, for all my students and subscribers, they look forward to these conversations because they're not just a conversation of, as you put it, just intellectualizing or understanding or contemplation. It returns to a knowing. How we identify with that progression, that ascended state starts with desire. Be desirous of something. That spark elevates inquiry. The inquiry creates contemplation. That contemplation turns into curiosity. Curiosity then blossoms hopium. Hopium is potent from a human's path of self-realization. That hopium then nurtures into what we call a belief system. That belief system is met with a knowing only through the experiential moment of now. That visceral, kinesthetic, somatic response that you and I are in union of right now is evidence of that truth. And that becomes your absolute truth. On the words, beyond the words. That's it. That charge we got right now, hell yeah. I'll take another one of those. That is the power of what we're talking about. Huh?
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Expand on it how you see fit. I want the audience to know I'm not talking over Camilla. She's allowing me to expand on her message because she might feel that she's not potentially optimizing her experience. I'm telling you, you are, my friend. As someone who's walked the path, I'm very grateful to remembering this friendship that we've had in past lives, because this goes beyond words, as it should. I mean, this is part of, the messenger of masters like yourself that remember the truth, the absolute truth of your knowing who you are as whole. And by bringing that resonance through incredible mastery, like light language, energy healing, whatever it is, that it's a vehicle to amplify this resonance. And then it shows itself. And it goes beyond the words. The words can also be, met as a vehicle, but ultimately the potency comes from that resonance. And that's the beautiful part, because from silence becomes sound, and you experience that. It is visceral. It's happening now.
Yeah.
And when it's like for the audience too, when Camilla's moving, she's moving because that's an energy, a divinity transmission that is moving through her physical body.
Yeah.
So it's like,
thank you for
right.
I
mean, if I capture my own, I'm like just moving around, and it will start to go very, very, very dramatically. And it forms in something that's quite similar, which you don't realize. And the realization is that it always forms back to the completion. Furthermore, you can see that it's replicating the infinity, and you're seeing that infinity being created through you as this transmission of divinity, and it becomes so potent. And it's never to be hindered, it's never to be controlled, it's never to be limited. I remember quite clearly when I first started this journey over 30 years ago, I would break chairs. I'd just be, and people are, oh, what is he doing that I'm not doing? What is happening? Because that is the vibration that is being presented as a knowing, and you should never ever dampen that or hinder that as you come across someone who's cultivating or teaching. That is a knowing. It's not something to be controlled. So many people go, well, you need to control your energy. No, not at all. This is the tuning fork. This is the barometer that will express it into this state of knowing from that.
Yeah, the problem starts when we try to control it in that sense too. When we work against it,
There's zero need to control who you are. Returning to who you are is perfection manifest as we put it.
And I think also I love how you use that phrase, because I always use that phrase, remember who you are, return to who you are. And I think that's really the greatest gift we can do. I mean, there's so many people today want to know their mission. They want to be of greatest service. And I think that's the greatest thing we can do, to remember and embody who we truly are and stand in that light. Because when we do, we help others to help them to remember who they are. I think because there's one consciousness, there is just this illusion of separated beings in these separated bodies, but we share this consciousness. So when I remember, and that's the greatest gift I can give as a teacher, as a healer, to be in my true essence and look at the other person, see the other person's true self, and that give them permission to tap into that feel of who they truly are.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And that's what's happening here too, the expansion of the
Right.
true self. Yeah.
And you feel you experience it. And you know, a lot of people, and this is a resonance that you know you have remembered and ascended to that
Mm.
knowing. But a lot of people, you will be in the presence of someone that in their mind thinks that they're highly ascended. Then they get to speak with you, and then all of a sudden, oh, I had no idea. And this happens quite often. That's why I'm very specific when I invite people on the podcast. They have to meet that resonance, or they're going to be furthermore perplexed by the experience. And I used to do that a lot with light workers and healers, and they'd come in and they're like, "You're not like posturing yourself or doing something, but I'm getting high as a kite on the energy transmission because it is my default. That is who I am."
And you get very sensitive to it when you are in that state, as we talked before about tapping into and read resonance. That's then you just know it's just on or off. It's not too much to think about, and it gets very clear, and you kind of get allergic to when it doesn't resonate. I don't know if that's in your experience too. You cannot fake it.
Yeah, no. And you're very true. It becomes sort of like very apparent that someone may claim to be the next coming of Jesus, which happens quite often in this space of spirituality. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has their own starting point. But what happens is through that path, we call it the Taoist rites, the path of self-realization, which comes through the immortalized effect crystallized in this material state. This path of mastery requires less and less and less as you continue to ascend with the resonance from vibratory to frequential to resonance, and it continues to expand and basically is all things, and you are able to access all things. What happens is most people are sort of stuck in a certain band of frequency. And so when they come across someone like yourself or myself, it's so abruptly crazy that they either become extremely magnetized to you or they're repelled from you at such a rapid rate that it's you can't make the shit up because you watch it. They become, they're like, oh my goodness, all of this stuff is rising to the top. And this is just nothing more than you holding on to this material state within the flesh, and you're not allowing to merge back into it, to transmute it back to this resonance. So they think they're ascended, and then they come across a resonance like yours, and they go, oh, shit, I'm literally having, some people may call it an energetic experience, a Kundalini experience, an awakening. We call it the Wu-Ji infinite body activation. And people are like, what is going on here? I thought I was a mastered. This is the problem. You think. Don't think. There's nothing to think about. Knowing is the actual experience of the feeling. And then it presents itself. There's nothing to talk about. As you said, it's that simple. And it will show itself instantly.
Yeah.
And this is what we're experiencing right now. And I think it's a really amazing union, because that communion right now that we're having is for the audience that will have, the second I publish this, they will experience all the energy potential that is taking place in this conversation that will present itself through them. It is forever a permanence. It is tangible. It is absolutely real. And that's the exciting part. That's what I love about this experience.
Yeah, that's the beauty. There's us talking, and at the same time is this transmission of conscious awareness. And if you slow down and really allow yourself to tap in, you can really hit that, what do you call it, that
The Wu Ji, the center point.
the
And,
bougie, yeah.
the fruits of that, right? The bearing of evidence, because we want evidence, we want it to be repeatable, or it's just transitory and delusional, right? So instead of staying in a state of question, instead of a knowing, which is the feeling, we will show ourselves. So once you hit the Wu Ji, the evidence to maintain that resonance, what happens is you reveal what we call Wu Wei, which is effortless effort, effortless action. And from that, you have synchronistic, serendipitous moments that are never ending. You hold that. It's like holding a note, and it presents itself as that's your note forever as an expanded now moment. And people are like, wow, okay. That's where you get these gurus or people that are looked at as upon a catalyst, a conduit of a divine knowing. Then they come and they sit with someone like a Sadhguru or a Dalai Lama or someone of that nature that they consider spiritual, and they're receiving this transmission, and they're like, holy crap, because they are embodied and live that as the now moment. And that's the potency of what we're speaking of. That's the mastery that you've acquired, and you continue to show yourself without words, without action. That's the part, the action for all those people that go, you need action for things to take place. The breath is action, my dear friends. That's it. That's it.
And more you say that note, that's, I call it your individual signature, your, we can call it also, I believe that each and every one of us have this, our own tune, note, signature, frequency, and that's what we are here to share, that makes up the whole. And that's the difference, I think, if you just learn a modality. So I learn, apply this, and I'm going to do this, and you don't have that sense of self, you don't have that connection, then it's just a modality. And then I see this often, and I think it's all good. I think it's perfect that we are on this journey and we want to share, but to really have the courage and the willingness to go within. And I think that's so important, to when we have a wish to share, when we have this strong wish to be. I love the way you are able to put words on it. Very beautiful. I am it and I practice it, and I think it's so beautiful how you just can explain it with words. Yeah.
And you need no words for what you bring, my friend. The evidence is the old expression, the proof is in the pudding. We are experiencing it right now. There is no need for the lackluster of the limitations of the English language, or any language, quite frankly. It goes beyond that. You show the receipts through your resonance, and that's all you need to codify that, solidify that, what would seem like an impermeable state, permanent, because now it's a resonance that is your very breath, your very action, your very thought, your very knowing is always with this resonance. And it continues to, as you continue to return to it on a daily basis, there will be a point of default. And side effects, the very clear side effects, they're sides of an effect that is a knowing. You will find that you are selfless and in servitude. You cannot fight. It'll just appear to you, and you'll be like, and that returns to the gift as you're offering. As you give, you will receive, returning to the symbiosis of completion to birth, constant. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an ongoing, and I think it's so beautiful how we can show up. We don't have to be on a stage. We don't have to even be here in front of an audience. As we can just in our everyday life, for our family, our children, and it doesn't matter where you are. You can always be that presence of peace, that witness of peace.
Yeah. I
that
mean,
come with a peace. Yeah.
it's the now moment that reveals that to you, and then you are instantly crystallized,
Yeah.
and that resonance will show itself, and you have the ability to access it
Mm.
at any
It's
moment.
always there.
It's
Yeah.
now.
Any moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Super,
And
super. Go ahead.
yeah, it is. No, so many people feel that I meet feel so disconnected, and that's how I felt as well. And I just think it's so important to know that we are never disconnected. We just
Mm.
have forgotten. We have never been abandoned by the divine or
Well, there's
God.
that. Yeah, I mean, I think there's that as that rite of passage, that ring
Mm.
of fire that you walk through. There is that moment where what we call you disconnect to reconnect. So
Mm.
first of all, foremost, you have that moment of selflessness that requires the sacrifice. When you realize that it's just your ability to identify that your identity is the very thing you don't need, that you can put to the side, but still experience as the human condition. But that mastery of resonance returns you to whole. So when you are in that present moment, you are the primordial mother. So if you think it becomes realized. Manifestation, magic, healing. You are now that now moment. That means that you are a vehicle. Your vehicle is non-descriptive. It's all encompassing. It is now. And so the personality is a beautiful expression of that gift of the human being that comes
Mm.
from going through the rite of passage of the human condition, through that
Mm.
labyrinth, and revealing the human being at the other side. And with that, you identify the potency of sentience. And that
Mhm.
sentience then reveals the superpower of the human, which is empathy. And then you become supercharged because now you are one. And that just contributes to the resonance of humanity, which returns us all to whole. And
Mm.
so the expression, one of the facets of being whole, is love. It's not the absolute. This is the misconception most people have. It's like, oh, well, that's the unified state. It's a partial facet of that diamond, but the
Mm.
diamond of perfection is everything. So you will be in that resonance, and then all of a sudden, emotional state, personality state still holds that resonance. You have now cultivated that state as the permanence of this now moment. So whether you feel happy or sad, in or out, up or down, you are admitting this resonance always.
Yeah.
And so you can enjoy the fruits of the personality as it's an expression of this state of humanness,
Yeah.
yet you can hold that resonance no matter what. And so when you are feeling, it's still maintaining that resonance. It actually goes higher,
Mm.
out of the mastery. Does that make sense?
Yes, it really, and I think it's so important because I think many people misunderstand. They think that it's the humanness will go away. I will never get upset. I will never get sad. And I think it's very beautiful put that it can coexist. I can just I be the chalice, the holder of the humanness. I don't have to believe in it fully. I don't have to think that that's all there is, but I can allow it to be in a state of love, in peace. And so they can, and I think that is the great difference when we not just wired in the experiences of the human conditions, but can allow it to be ourselves to be the holder, the witness.
And
And
there
that it
lies,
can still exist. It doesn't have to go away. It doesn't have to change. Yeah.
and there is your Sherlock to your Watson. You are the sleuth that is picking up all the crumbs that ultimately return you to this liberation of
Yeah.
knowing who you are through
Yeah.
that self-discovery, that self-mastery. And there's nothing more potent than being an experiencer. The experiencer validates the knowing. Only then will it be codified. Only then will it be permanent. And you must be able to experience it to validate it for yourself. And then you form what is your absolute truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's magical, this journey that we're on, my dear friend.
It is. It is. I didn't always agree, but it is. And I'm grateful. I think when we experience extreme, we become very committed. And that in itself is a gift. We don't have the luxury to just dip our toes. We need to plunge in wholeheartedly. And
Yeah, and this is where it leads us to a remembrance through communion, like the one we're experiencing now. Is this whole feeling that is the knowing. And so without the experience, it's nothing more than empty words. It must be validated by the seeker to the knower. And that's part of the Taoist right path of self-realization. And potent for anybody. Everyone has their own rite of passage, and it all returns back to the same resonance. And it's like there's so much that we speak on today that is absolutely in parallel, the same. And we're identifying where they're going, whoa, hang on a second, you're coming from, and this is why I always say there's a million ways up the mountain. The second you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. That there is a facet. Everything has a facet. There's one diamond of perfection from a Taoist, and everyone, you are one facet of the diamond, I am another. It still returns to that whole diamond of perfection. Does that make sense?
Very true, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the magic, and that's the brilliance of it, because we're receiving the same divine messaging that shows through our wisdom teaching, through our own experience, that returns us to the same place.
Yeah. Many ways to the same
Yeah. It's
place.
it's profound. You cannot make this stuff up.
It's amazing.
It's the now moment. And so how is it across the globe? Do you work with people mostly online or within, did you say you're in Sweden?
Only online nowadays. Since COVID.
Right.
And it works perfect. I think it's there's no need actually to meet physically.
No. Yeah, I mean, distant healing is an ancient practice within Taoism that's been around for hundreds of thousands of years. Once you are accessing that resonance, it doesn't matter where you are. We're all one.
We are all one, and there's no time space in that sense. So
yeah.
So it happens in this now moment, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's a very limited construct.
Yeah.
Very limited. Yet it's for the human being to make sense of what it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
I always get that from students. It's like, why, Jifu? Why am I here? And my answer is, why not? Whoa, what? Because the human being is so obsessed with their own identity that they become deluded. They become delusional because it's that narcissistic. I'm looking in the mirror at what the truth is. No, it's beyond the mirror, but the mirror will show you your whole. Yet it starts with sacrificing what you perceive as identity. And that sacrifice is such a big leap for many people, yet it is absolutely effortless and painless. Yet from perception wise, there's such a retention for wanting to hold on to that yet they're not losing anything. Once they're liberated, they are able to access the personality and the ultimate, the primordial mother at will. Yet
Mhm.
there's fear-based misconception where if I sacrifice that, I'm forever lost.
Mm.
You're forever knowing who you are.
Mm.
It's just being able to detach and then reattach.
Yeah, we can never lose anything that is of truth. We can never lose anything but illusions.
Yeah,
So there is, but of course, the ego mind wants to hold on to the known, to identity, to form.
sure. And I
Mm.
mean, that is never be misconcepted. I mean, the thing, the delusional part is like, this is, you're an immortal having a human being experience. Do not lose sight of that. This
Mm.
is for your experience. This is for your pleasure, your journey to experience this material. So,
Mm.
dismissing the human flesh is a mistake.
Yeah.
Dismissing the experience that you can have, but your journey will be forever serendipitous and synchronistic if you access the resonance of your true self. It's like, oh my goodness, everyone will look at you like you're just the luckiest person alive. No,
Mm.
I've just remembered who I am. Let me help you remember who you are, and then
Very.
you hold that resonance.
Mm. Yeah, it's a big difference when identity, when we are here to play with identity, or when it becomes so important to us that we think that it equals death to give it up.
Right.
And that's the ego death that we need to go through.
And I always remind people, when you realize, when you know you are not of this body, what can harm you?
Yeah.
Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of those epiphany self-realization.
Mm.
That returns us back to Wu Wei, this messaging, this paradox of the effortless effort, the effortless action, which people scratch their head with. And then I return the
Mm.
simplicity of, when you have to learn it, you do not know it. When you know it, you do not have to learn it.
Mm.
Oh, there lies you returning to who you are, coming home to that
Mm.
resonance that does not
Mm.
require any thought process. It doesn't require your participation. You can
Mm.
move that out of the way and be very clear that the personality gets moved off like an icon on a computer screen, and you are now present. That
Mhm.
present will show itself as whole.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It is whole. It's unbroken. It is. And for people, when they start to tap into that, the part of them who never been hurt, that never been damaged, that always are complete and whole, and that part will be forever. And that is so powerful. That is really when we come to start to understand our true potential and what we are made of.
Which is
Mm.
everything. We are
Every,
all
yeah.
things. We are the actual charge of that unification that makes everything possible, that
Yeah.
creates all things. As the mother, you are the creator of all things.
Mm. That's huge. It's hard to grasp for the human mind. And that's why when we expand on those things, and I like what you talk about, to go beyond thoughts, beyond breath, in between breath, as in Sanskrit, the kumbhaka. It is like a little death when we experience in between inhale and exhale, and that's just the vastness, the everything to be discovered and rediscovered.
And
Mm.
this is where you become completely unenamored by the material.
Mm.
You are now just, hey, I'm not in lack of. I don't need that. I don't want that. I don't desire that, because the only desirous effects of now is, all that I need is that potency, the remedy to the knowing
Yeah,
is that now moment.
yeah.
then you become, there is a complete absence of any desire or need for anything except to give, to be in service. And then, of course, the oscillating effects of that that you receive. So you complete, and then you are given as a rebirth once again.
That's powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. We're just getting started, my friends. We're just getting started. So I'm going to ask you to come back and have another conversation. And furthermore, I want to put in under this podcast all your social sphere interweb material, where people can find you, where people can experience your wisdom teaching, get one-on-one sessions, and of course it's through the interweb, and that you are teaching people this knowing, this wise ancient self-realization through your mastery. And I will ask you one last question before you close this out. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Yeah, that's a big one. Can you repeat, please? What is
your definition of spiritual consciousness?
For me, it is the knowing, again, the great knowing that we are. I am. We are. All there is. Always. Infinite. Beyond.
And just for the audience, Camilla's just pausing for a minute, getting her source of information, and then transmitting it to this very conversation, which is so powerful. And, I love that. I've done hundreds of these podcasts and never got the same answer, as I should not, because that's your absolute truth. And that is defined and refined and codified into this material state through your experience, through your knowing. And you experience it viscerally because your words are not empty. They are vehicles for this substance. They're vehicles for the divinity that is transmitted from you as a catalyst and conduit. That resonance is my remembrance. Is the now moment?
Yeah.
Whew.
The resonance is my remembrance. That's powerful. Yeah.
Would you like to close this out with anything you'd like to share with the audience? Like, I'm going to make sure they know where to find you. Is there anything you're offering? Like maybe you've got an upcoming class or something where someone can experience you in a group setting or individual setting? Share with the audience.
So, as you said, the information will be provided in the description box and there is my YouTube channel where I do transmissions and of course one-on-one sessions, and please email me for one-on-one sessions. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to revisiting this conversation again, my dear friend.
Me too.
This was a beautiful union right now, and a remembrance for anyone experiencing this. It's an experience. It's not just a conversation. It's a return to who you are.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for your spending your time with us today. Very grateful for you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and seafood, Taoist Master San Qing. And I'll see you in the next one, guys.